My wife, Chloe, said she was going to her college reunion. I'd wrapped up a client dinner early, so I figured I'd drive over to the hotel and surprise her. I pushed open the door to the penthouse suite at the Grand Imperial, and the bouquet of roses in my hand dropped to the floor with a soft thud. The pulsing music screeched to a halt. I saw my wife, Chloe, pinned against a corner sofa by her former class president, a guy named Brandon Carter. Her blouse was half unbuttoned, her hair a mess. The room went dead silent. Every eye in a place, all her old college friends, snapped toward me like a bank of spotlights. I saw shock. I saw pity. But mostly, I saw the smug, morbid excitement of people watching a train wreck. And beneath it all, an odd sense of shared understanding I couldn't yet place. My name is Will Taylor. Chloe and I have been married for 3 years. I'm a project manager at a construction firm. She's an administrative director at a tech company. We were college sweethearts, the couple everyone said was destined to make it. In everyone's eyes, we were the perfect pair. Just 2 hours ago, she had wrapped her arms around my neck, kissing me goodbye. "You're the best, honey," she'd cooed, letting me have a night out with my old friends. And now, here she was under another man. I recognized him, Brandon Carter, class president, now the CEO of some boutique investment firm. Drove a Porsche, looked like $1 million, but was pure trash. I remember Chloe mentioning him once, saying he was the most successful person from their graduating class. I guess this is what success looked like. When Chloe saw me, she let out a choke scream and shoved Brandon off her. She fumbled with her torn blouse, her face ghost white. Her lips trembled, but she couldn't form a single word. Brandon, on the other hand, slowly got to his feet. He adjusted his tie, his expression not one of guilt, but of annoyance at being interrupted, mixed with an infuriating, high-handed arrogance. He looked at me like I was a cockroach who'd wandered into his party. "Will, what are you doing here?" Finally, Chloe's voice, quavering and thick with tears, as if she were the one who had been wronged. "If I hadn't come," I said with a laugh that didn't reach my eyes, "I would have missed the party." I didn't charge in swinging. I didn't scream and demand answers. In the face of absolute rage and humiliation, my mind went unervingly calm. I bent down, picked up the fallen roses, and walked toward them, step by deliberate step. The air in the room felt solid. Dozens of pairs of eyes watched me during the most shameful moment of my life. "It's a misunderstanding. Will, this is all a big misunderstanding." Chloe's supposed best friend, a woman named Jen, jumped in to play peacemaker. Chloe had too much to drink. She was stumbling. Brandon was just helping her, that's all. Don't get the wrong idea. "Yeah, that's right. That's all it was. We're all old friends here, just messing around. Don't take it so seriously, Will." A chorus of voices chimed in, weaving a pathetic net of lies to cover up the ugly scene. Helping her onto a sofa, helping her out of her clothes. I looked at this pathetic collection of so-called friends, and any lingering sentiment I had for their shared history evaporated. I ignored them, my gaze locked on Chloe. She flinched, unable to meet my eyes. "Chloe, tell me," I asked softly, my voice chillingly quiet. "Is it a misunderstanding?" She bit her lip, tears welling up. After a sharp, warning glance from Brandon, she finally nodded. "Yes, it's a misunderstanding. Honey, let's just go home and talk, okay?" "Okay," I said, nodding. "We'll talk at home." Then I did something no one, not even Chloe or Brandon, could have predicted. I held out the bouquet of roses to Brandon. He stared, confused. "Mr. Carter, isn't it?" I smiled, a flash of white teeth. "My wife. Seems like she's in good hands with you. Please, don't let me stop you." Without another glance at Chloe, I turned and walked out. Behind me, a silence as heavy as a tombstone, punctuated only by the sound of my own footsteps walking away. The moment I stepped out of the hotel, the cool night air hit me, and the nausea and rage I had suppressed erupted like a volcano. I stumbled to the curb, braced myself against a tree, and threw up until my stomach was empty. My insides were churning, but my heart was already scorched earth. I pulled out my phone and opened an app one rarely looked at, my cloud photo stream. It held our entire history from college until now. I scrolled through the pictures, one after another. A smiling girl, her eyes once so full of genuine love. I thought what we had was unbreakable. Turns out, next to money and power, it was a cheap joke. I didn't go home. The place that was once my sanctuary now felt like a filthy cage. I got a room at a different hotel, threw myself on the bed, and stared at the ceiling, wide awake all night. The scene from the penthouse suite played on a loop in my mind, a constant reel of Chloe's pale, terrified face. The next morning, my phone blew up. Endless calls from Chloe and her family. I ignored everyone. Then, a block number came through. I answered. It was Brandon. "Will, if you're a man, you'll meet me to talk this over." His voice was dripping with condescending arrogance. "Fine," I replied calmly. "You name the time and place." He seemed pleased by my compliance, telling me to meet him in half an hour at the Capitol Grill. I hung up the phone with a cold smile. Talk good. I was dying to know what my wife and my marriage were worth to him. The private room of the steakhouse was dark wood and leather. Brandon was already there, pouring himself a glass of whiskey. He barely glanced up when I walked in. "Sit." I pulled out a chair and sat across from him. "Will, I know you're upset." He pushed a glass toward me, his tone like he was calming down a nervous dog. "But what's done is done. We have to look forward." Forward. I picked up the glass, but didn't drink. "Chloe's a great woman, but she was settling with you. It was holding her back," Brandon said, a picture of false sympathy. "She deserves a better life. Designer bags, luxury cars, a mansion. Things you can't give her." I looked at him and suddenly laughed. "And you can. I can." A self-satisfied smirk spread across his face. "And I'm here today to offer you a respectable way out." He slid a manila envelope across the table. "There's $100,000 in there. You and Chloe get a divorce. You tell everyone it was mutual, that you just grew apart. Consider the money compensation for your trouble. $100,000. The buyout for my 3-year marriage and the humiliation he'd put me through. How generous." I didn't touch the envelope. I just looked at him. "Brandon, do you really think you have me all figured out?" His brow furrowed. He clearly hadn't expected this response. In his world, a regular guy like me, a project manager, should have just taken the money and slunk away from a titan like him. "Will, don't push your luck." His polite facade vanished, his voice turning hard. "Why don't you ask around? In Denver, when Brandon Carter wants something, he gets it. If you make a scene, it won't be good for anyone. And I'm not the only one who'll end up embarrassed." He was warning me. If this went public, Chloe's reputation would be ruined, and Taylor, would be the laughingstock of the city. "Let me ask you a question." Unfazed, I leaned forward, my eyes boring into his. "That night, in that room, with all your old friends, why did every single one of them lie for you?" Brandon's eyes flickered for a second before he sneered. "Because they're smarter than you. They know who's worth networking with. Will, you've been living in your small world for too long. You have no idea how big the real world is." "Is that right?" I stood up, picked up the cup of black coffee on the table, and slowly, deliberately, poured every last drop over his smug, condescending face. He yelped and shot up from his chair, hot coffee and grounds dripping down his cheeks. "Are you ing crazy?" he sputtered, his face a mask of rage. "Crazy, no." I looked down at his pathetic state and said, enunciating every word, "I'm just awake. And you listen to me, Brandon. This isn't over. Not for you, not for your smart friends, and not for my wife who deserves a better life. None of you are getting away with this." I turned and left, leaving him screaming obscenities in the private room. As soon as I was out of the restaurant, I made a call. "Sophia, I need your help." Sophia Chun was a few years behind me in college. Now, she was one of the top divorce attorneys in Denver, known for her aggressive tactics and undefeated record. "Will, what's wrong?" Her voice was sharp and professional. "Long story short, I've been cheated on. Walked in on it and everything. Now the guy's trying to buy me off for $100,000. I told him to shove it." Sophia was silent for a moment. "Who is the other party?" "Brandon Carter. Calls himself the new hotshot of Denver's investment scene." "Brandon Carter." Sophia repeated the name, thinking. "Sounds vaguely familiar. Okay, I've got it. Well, don't do anything rash. Don't sign anything, and don't confront them again. Send me everything you know, including a list of every person in that room. I'll handle the rest." Okay. Hanging up, I felt the towering inferno of my rage finally find a proper channel. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about retribution. I didn't want his money. I wanted them all to pay for what they had done, and I wanted the price to be devastating. For the next few days, I followed Sophia's instructions and went completely dark. I didn't answer Chloe's texts. I didn't take calls from her or her family. The more I was a ghost, the more they would panic. I used the time to take a calm, cold inventory of our marital assets. The house my parents had bought for me outright before the wedding. It was in my name only, my separate property. The car, an SUV worth about $40,000, was bought after we were married. Marital property. Finance. We had our own accounts, but we contributed to a joint account every month for bills and investments. I checked the transaction history of the joint account, and my heart sank. 3 months ago, a single transfer of $50,000 went out of the account. The recipient was an individual I didn't recognize. A sick feeling washed over me. I had a friend at the bank pull the account holder's information. The result made my blood run cold. The account belonged to Brandon Carter. Chloe hadn't just cheated on me. She had stolen from our joint savings and given the money to her lover. My fist clenched so hard my knuckles cracked. This wasn't a simple affair. This was a conspiracy to defraud me of my assets. I told Sophia what I'd found. She was quiet for a moment. Well, this might be more complicated than we thought. That $50,000 is technically marital property. As a co-owner of the account, it's legally difficult to classify her transferring it as theft. At worst, it's an unauthorized disposition of marital assets. We need to find out what that money was for. What do you mean? Was it a gift? Sophia's voice turned razor sharp. Or was it for something else? Like an investment? An investment? Brandon's words at the steakhouse. The strange, unified front from their friends. A horrifying thought began to form in my mind. Sophia, do you think he could be using some investment opportunity to raise money from his old classmates? It's highly possible. Sophia's tone grew heavy. Think about it. Why would they all risk your wrath to lie for him and Chloe? Unless they were all bound together by a common interest. And money is the strongest glue there is. A cold sweat broke out on my back. If that was true, then the scene at the reunion wasn't a random, drunken mistake. It was a carefully orchestrated transaction. Maybe Chloe was trying to claw back a failed investment by other means. And those classmates, they weren't just bystanders. They were accomplices. If Brandon went down, the money they'd all invested would vanish with him. This realization turned my pain into something far colder. My hatred for Chloe now surpassed the simple agony of betrayal. Her stupidity and greed were more disgusting to me than her infidelity. I get it, I told Sophia. Our goal isn't just divorce and division of assets anymore. I want to put him in prison. I was hoping you'd say that, Sophia said. But we need evidence. Building a case for financial crimes is incredibly difficult. We need to find a crack. Where was the crack? It was in that group of classmates. I sent Sophia the list of everyone who was there that night. She started using her network to run background checks. Meanwhile, I started my own plan. I knew that in a group of investors like that, not everyone could be a true believer in Brandon Carter. There had to be someone who had bet the farm, someone now lying awake at night, terrified. That person was our crack. My first target was Jen Russo, Chloe's best friend. Sophia's research showed Jen's family wasn't wealthy. She and her husband had just scraped together a down payment for a condo a year ago and were buried in mortgage payments. There was no way she had disposable income for a high-risk investment. I called her. Jen, it's Will. She was clearly not expecting my call. Her voice was flustered. Will, what do you want? Nothing much. Just wanted to ask if you've heard anything about that $30,000 you invested with Brandon, I said, going straight for the jugular. Silence on the other end. After a long pause, she stammered, What are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. You don't. I let out a cold laugh. The money you invested, that was your parents' money for the down payment, wasn't it? Does her husband know? What happens when Brandon skips town and you can't make your mortgage payment? You think your husband will divorce you after he breaks both your legs? What do you want from me? She finally sobbed. I don't want anything. I'm just giving you a heads up. You and Chloe are best friends, but she and I are about to be divorced. I don't care what happens to her, but you should think very carefully about whether you want to go down with their sinking ship or find a life raft for yourself. I hung up. I knew I had planted a seed of terror. Jen would go running to Chloe or Brandon, and they would feed her more lies to keep her calm. But that seed would grow. Sure enough, 2 days later, Sophia called with a breakthrough. She discovered that Brandon's company, Carter Capital, wasn't registered with the SEC or FINRA. Its main account was offshore, a classic setup for an illegal fundraising scheme. Even more critical, she found another lead. In the past month, Brandon had been aggressively moving assets and had just been approved for a visa to a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. He was getting ready to run. "We're running out of time," Sophia said. "We need direct proof of the fraud. Signed contracts, transfer records, internal ledgers, something concrete. Only his inner circle would have access to that. Someone like Jen was just a pawn." I set my sights on another classmate, a quiet, bespectacled man named Kevin Miller. At the reunion, he was the first person to back up Jen's lie about Brandon helping Chloe. Sophia's background check revealed that Kevin was Brandon's college roommate and now the COO of his company. His right-hand man. Getting evidence from him would be next to impossible. But I had a plan. I found out Kevin had a son in elementary school. His wife picked him up every day at 3 p.m. She drove a red Mazda. That afternoon, I arranged a little accidental meeting in front of the school. A gentle fender bender. My front bumper into her rear one. I got out of the car, apologized profusely, and immediately offered to take full responsibility and pay out of pocket to avoid insurance. My sincere attitude put her at ease. While we waited for the tow truck for her car, I struck up a casual conversation. "Ma'am, you seem to be in great spirits. Must be good news at home." "Things are good," she said, flattered. "My husband's company is doing really well. He just got a huge bonus." "Wow, that's fantastic. I hear they're working on some big projects, really high-yield stuff." I laid the bait. "You have no idea," she said proudly. "Kevin says if they stick with Mr. Carter, we'll be able to afford a penthouse downtown by the end of the year." "That's the dream," I said wistfully. "But I've heard those high-return investments can be risky. Did you guys, sign contracts? Is it all above board?" "Of course," she said without a second thought. "The contracts are all in Kevin's briefcase. He keeps copies of everything, signed by Mr. Carter himself, company seal, and all. It's totally legit." My heart hammered in my chest. The contracts. In his briefcase. Goal achieved. I wrapped up the small talk, settled the accident claim, and we parted ways. That night, I did something I never thought I was capable of. I snuck into the parking garage of Kevin's condo building. Using what I had observed during the day, I found his assigned parking spot. In his car. His wife had mentioned he had a bad habit of leaving his briefcase on the back seat. In the dead of night, I used the oldest trick in the book, a brick wrapped in a towel. I shattered the passenger side window. The car was old enough that no alarm went off. I reached in, unlocked the door, grabbed the briefcase from the back seat, and vanished into the darkness. Back in my hotel room, my hands trembled as I opened the briefcase. Inside, just as his wife had said, was a file folder. I opened it. It was filled with private investment agreements. Each one detailed the investment amount, the projected returns, and a description of a vague, nonsensical investment project. On the signature line was Brandon Carter's ostentatious scrawl and the seal of Carter Capital Management. And under the investor names, I saw them all. Jen Russo, Mark Shun, Sarah Lee. Nearly everyone from that night. But it was one contract that made my blood freeze. Investor, Chloe Davis. Investment amount, $100,000. The date was a year and a half ago. A full year before the $50,000 transfer I had discovered. And the amount was $100,000. Our joint account never had that kind of money in it. Where did she get it? A sudden, horrifying memory surfaced. I scrambled to find our marriage certificate. When we got married, my parents gave us a separate bank card as a wedding gift. It had $75,000 in it. They told us to keep it for a real emergency or as a down payment on a house for our future kids. Chloe had been in charge of that card. I ran out of the hotel and found a 24-hour bank. I used my ID to report the card lost and requested a printout of the transaction history. The moment the teller handed me the statement, I felt the blood drain from my face. A year and a half ago, the entire $75,000 had been transferred out in a single transaction. The recipient, once again, was Brandon Carter. She didn't just steal our marital savings. She stole the nest egg my parents had worked their whole lives for. She stole our future. It started so much earlier than I thought. She had been plotting against me, against my family, for years. The woman I slept next to every night wasn't my wife. She was a venomous snake coiled at my side, waiting for the right moment to sink her fangs in and drain me dry. Rage, betrayal, disgust. The emotions churned inside me, threatening to swallow me whole. I stood on the deserted street in the middle of the night, clutching that stack of cold, hard contracts, and I started to laugh. I laughed until tears streamed down my face. Chloe, Brandon, your game is over. The next day, I gave the original contracts to Sophia. Her eyes lit up. This is it. Will, this is the smoking gun. With these, we can go to the police right now and have them open a case. No, I said, my voice ice cold. Not yet. Why not? Sophia was confused. Brandon's about to skip the country. If we wait any longer, we'll lose him. Because this isn't enough, I said, looking her straight in the eye. These contracts prove Brandon committed fraud, but they don't prove the guilt of one other person. Who? Chloe. Sophia stared at me. Chloe, she's a victim, Will. She lost $100,000. No, she isn't. I pulled out a copy of Chloe's contract and pointed to a specific section. Sophia, look closely at the signature date, and then read the terms. Sophia put on her glasses and scanned the document. As she read, the color drained from her face. This is impossible. She looked up, her eyes wide with shock. The profit-sharing model on her contract. It's completely different from everyone else's. Exactly, I said. Everyone else was promised a fixed 30% annual return. Chloe's contract is a tiered commission structure. For investments under $100,000, she gets a 10% cut. From $100,000 to $250,000, it's 15%. But the real kicker is the last clause. For every new investor she successfully recruits, she gets a 5% finder's fee from their initial investment. Sophia gasped. This isn't an investor's agreement. This is a partner's contract, Will. She wasn't just an investor. She was Brandon's accomplice. She was a recruiter for his Ponzi scheme. That's right. The theory hit like a bolt of lightning, illuminating every dark corner of the past few years. Why did Chloe know about Brandon's investment so much earlier than anyone else? Where did she get all that money, enough to drain my parents' gift without a second thought? Why did everyone at the reunion instinctively protect them? Because Chloe was the one who brought them into the scheme. She used my trust, and she weaponized her friendships, dragging her old classmates one by one into Brandon's trap, all while skimming a dirty commission off their life savings. She wasn't a stupid victim. She was a greedy predator. The scene at the reunion took on a new, more sinister meaning. It wasn't a drunken fumble or an attempt to win back her investment. It was probably an argument over splitting the profits, a power struggle within their corrupt partnership. My arrival was just an inconvenient interruption that forced them to unite against a common enemy. The truth was so much colder than I could have imagined. I had been married to a monster for 10 years. I see it now, Sophia said, her face grim. You're right, Will. If Chloe is just a victim, we call the cops, and she loses her money. But if she's an accomplice, she's facing federal prison time. Exactly, I said, staring out at the Denver skyline. The city lights sparkled, but all I saw was darkness. Which is why we need one last thing. What? Proof that she recruited people and got paid for it. We need her bank records showing the commissions for Brandon, or her chat history with the other classmates. That would be the final nail in her coffin. And there was only one person who could give us that. The one teetering on the edge of the cliff, consumed by panic, her best friend, Jen. I contacted Jen again. This time, there were no threats. I asked her to meet me at a coffee shop and told her I was bringing my lawyer. Jen showed up looking haggard. Dark circles hung under her eyes. It was clear she hadn't slept in days. Will, she started, her voice barely a whisper. Sit down, I said, gesturing to the chair. This is my attorney, Sophia Chun. Jen's anxiety visibly spiked at the sight of a lawyer. Jen, I didn't ask you here to talk about you lying for them. I began calmly. I'm here to offer you a choice. I laid it all out. Brandon's plan to flee the country, the evidence of the fraudulent scheme. Jen's face went ashen. No, that's impossible. Brandon said the first dividend payment was coming next month. She mumbled, clinging to a last shred of hope. Sophia cut her off coldly. Ms. Russo, as an attorney, let me be clear. Once Brandon Carter leaves the country, you will never see a dime of your money again. And if you're found to be a co-conspirator, you'll be held legally responsible. So, What do I do, my money? Jen finally broke, tears streaming down her face. There's a way you can recover some of your losses and receive immunity from prosecution, I said, playing my final card. You can become a cooperating witness. You help us, and you provide evidence. Jen's head snapped up. We need to know exactly how Chloe convinced you to invest. We need all of your chat logs, any saved voicemails. And most importantly, we need to know who else Chloe brought into this. Her eyes darted back and forth. She was trapped. Betray her best friend or save herself. Jen, I added the final weight to the scales. I know the money you invested was from your in-laws for your condo. Your husband still doesn't know. Does he? Would you rather he find out from me or from the FBI? That did it. Her defenses crumbled. She closed her eyes, and 2 final tears of surrender traced paths down her cheeks. I'll do it, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'll give you everything. Chloe came to me. She said Brandon had this exclusive project, guaranteed returns. She even showed me screenshots of her profits. She messaged a bunch of us from college one by one and pulled us all in. She took out her phone and began scrolling through her message history with Chloe. It was all there. Chloe, with her slick words about sisterhood and getting rich together, packaging fake profit statements like candy to lure Jen into the trap. When Jen said she didn't have the money, Chloe had helpfully suggested she could borrow from her family's housing fund, promising the returns were so fast she could pay it back in 6 months and no one would ever know. Reading those messages, it was like looking at a stranger. The kind, simple Chloe I thought I knew was gone, replaced by a calculating, soulless predator. Then, Jen gave us the key. To make communication easier, Chloe started a small group chat. For all the people she brought in, she'd post good news in there to keep everyone from panicking. Are you still in that group? I asked urgently. Yes, but she'll probably delete it soon. Give me your phone. I took Jen's phone and opened the WhatsApp group chat named Financial Freedom Sisterhood. Looking at the familiar profile pictures of their classmates, the rage burned in my chest again. Using Jen's account, I typed a single message into the group. Girls, we have a problem. I think Brandon is about to skip town. It was like throwing a grenade into a crowded room. The chat exploded. Jen, where did you hear that? Don't spread rumors. No way. Chloe just told me the project is going great. Panic began to spread like wildfire. I didn't reply. I immediately had Sophia's paralegal begin archiving the entire chat history as legal evidence. This was the final piece of the puzzle. The procession for Chloe's funeral. The net had been cast, and Chloe and Brandon, blissfully unaware, were still dreaming of their getaway. The final act took place at a success gala Brandon organized to placate his investors. It was held in the grand ballroom of the city's most luxurious 5-star hotel. It was his last-ditch effort to keep the flock calm before he vanished, and maybe even squeeze them for one final round of cash. Sophia, myself, and a team of plainclothes detectives waited in the wings. The banquet began. Brandon, radiating confidence, took the stage and raised a glass of champagne. To my friends, my partners, thank you for your trust in me and in Carta Capital. I promise you, our venture is about to enter a new stratosphere. By the end of the year, every single person in this room will see their net worth double. A scattered, hesitant round of applause rippled through the room. Chloe was seated at the head table next to him, wearing an expensive evening gown, looking every bit the queen of the ball. She sipped her wine, basking in the attention, completely oblivious to the fact that her world was about to end. Just as the applause died down, the ballroom doors swung open. I walked in. Every head turned. Once again, I was the center of attention. But this time, the looks weren't of pity or morbid curiosity. They were of pure shock. Will, what the hell are you doing here? Chloe shrieked, jumping to her feet. Brandon's face paled, but he tried to maintain control. Security, get this man out of my event. I don't think you'll have the chance, I said with a small smile, then clicked a button on a remote in my hand. Behind him, the massive LED screen that was supposed to be showing his corporate hype video flickered to life. But it wasn't his video. It was mine, the one I'd recorded on my phone from the doorway of the penthouse suite. It was only 15 seconds long, but it was enough for everyone to see Brandon pinning Chloe to the sofa and to see her less than forceful resistance. The room erupted in gasps. Oh my God! So it was true. The whispers were like 1,000 tiny cuts on Chloe and Brandon's faces. Chloe looked like she was about to faint. "Turn it off. Turn that damn thing off." Brandon screamed at the tech booth. "Don't be in such a hurry, Brandon," I said, pausing the video on the most incriminating frame. "The show is just getting started." I walked onto the stage and took the microphone from his hand. "Good evening, everyone. I know you're all here tonight feeling a little nervous, worried that your investment might have been a huge mistake." I scanned the anxious faces in the crowd. "Well, I'm here to tell you it was. Your money is gone. Every last cent. Because your high-yield investment opportunity was a fraud from the very beginning." A bomb went off in the room. "What? That's impossible. We have contracts." "Brandon, you'd better explain yourself right now." The crowd started to surge toward the stage. "Everyone, please calm down," I yelled into the microphone, my voice booming through the speakers. "I know you don't believe me, so why don't I just show you how you were scammed?" I clicked the remote again. The video was replaced by a PowerPoint presentation, slide after slide of damning evidence. Scans of every contract from Kevin's briefcase. Proof of Carter Capital status as an offshore shell corporation. Bank statements showing the shocking flow of money between Brandon's and Chloe's accounts. And the grand finale, the full, unedited chat history of the Financial Freedom Sisterhood group. Chloe's manipulative messages, her fake profit screenshots, her promises of guaranteed returns. Every lie was stripped bare for the world to see. "Chloe," Jen was the first to snap, pointing a trembling finger. "I trusted you. You played me for a fool. And me. I gave you my wedding money," another woman cried out. "Give us our money back, Brandon." "Chloe, you pair of scumbags. Give me back my life savings." The ballroom descended into chaos. An angry mob surged forward, their fury directed at the two people on stage. Chloe stared at the screen, at the irrefutable proof of her crimes, at the faces of the friends she had betrayed now looking at her with murder in their eyes. She knew it was over. She collapsed to the floor, her face a mask of utter despair. Brandon, still trying to fight, pointed at me. "You. This is slander. This evidence is fake. I'll sue you." "Sue me?" I laughed. "I think you have bigger problems right now." On cue, the ballroom doors opened one last time. A group of uniformed police officers and 2 FBI agents entered. The lead agent walked onto the stage and held up his badge. "Brandon Carter, Chloe Davis, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud and operating an illegal Ponzi scheme. You have the right to remain silent." The cold click of handcuffs echoed through the microphone as they were secured around Brandon's and Chloe's wrists. In that moment, Chloe finally broke. She whipped her head around to face me, her eyes burning with a venomous hatred. "Will, you monster! After everything we had, you'd really send me to prison." Even now, she thought our marriage meant something, that I owed her some kind of loyalty. I walked over and knelt down in front of her, looking into her twisted, desperate face. "The moment you betrayed me and conspired against me," I said quietly, "the only thing left between us was a debt. And sending you to prison is the last lesson I will ever teach you. You should use the time to reflect. Your better life is just getting started." I stood up and walked away without looking back. The police led Brandon, Chloe, and a few of their key accomplices away. The remaining classmates stood shell-shocked and broken. They looked at me with a mixture of regret, fear, and the bitter self-loathing of the greedy and the foolish. I walked over to Jen, who was still shaking. "Thank you for your cooperation," I said. "As a witness, your charges will be reduced. As for your money," I paused. "Whatever the receivers can claw back, you might get a piece of. Consider it an expensive lesson in greed." Jen covered her face and began to sob. I turned my back on the whole sordid affair and walked out of the ballroom with Sophia by my side. Epilogue 6 months later. Brandon Carter, as the mastermind, was convicted on all counts. Given the massive scale of the fraud, he was sentenced to life in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Chloe, as a primary accomplice and key recruiter, was sentenced to 15 years. The evidence I provided, especially her recruitment chat logs, sealed her fate. I saw her at the sentencing. She was sitting at the defendant's table, and when she saw me in the gallery, she broke down, sobbing and begging me for forgiveness. I just stared back, my face a blank mask, until the marshals led her away. Forgiveness? maybe another life. Our divorce was finalized. Because of Chloe's criminal actions and malicious dissipation of marital assets, the judge awarded me 100% of our shared property. The SUV, the remaining savings, it was all mine. The house, which my parents had bought, was never hers to begin with. After all her scheming and betrayal, she was left with nothing. A convicted felon with a 15-year prison sentence. It was exactly what she deserved. The other classmates also paid the price for their greed. After court-ordered restitution was paid to me for the money stolen from my parents, there was very little left. Most of them recovered less than 10 cents on the dollar. Some went bankrupt, others got divorced. Their lives were ruined. They never contacted me again, and I was grateful for the silence. Kevin Miller, Brandon's COO, got 10 years. I doubt his wife ever got her penthouse downtown. On a sunny afternoon, Sophia and I sat at a cafe. Well, this is the court-ordered restitution from Chloe. The $75,000 she took, Sophia said, sliding a cashier's check across the table. I took it and looked at her. Sophia, thank you. For everything. Don't thank me. You were the one who stayed calm. And ruthless, she said, sipping her coffee. So, what's next for you? A new beginning, I said, looking out the window at the people walking by. I felt lighter than I had in years. It's a big world. Time to go see it. Over the past 6 months, I had systematically purged every trace of Chloe from my life. I quit my steady job, took the recovered money and my own savings, and started a small adventure travel company. Something I was actually passionate about. Freed from that toxic, rotten relationship, I realized my life had endless possibilities. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Jen. Well, I'm so sorry. And thank you. My husband forgave me. We're moving away from Denver to start over. I hope you find happiness. I read it, then deleted the message without replying. I didn't need her apology, but I'd accept the good wishes. Everyone has to live with the choices they make. I raised my coffee cup in a toast to Sophia. She clinked hers against mine. To new beginnings, she said with a smile. To new beginnings, I replied and drank. The sun streamed through the window, warm on my face. The betrayal and the pain were finally in the past. The feeling of taking out your own trash, once and for all. It was liberating,